Welcome to the Future of Tourism podcast. I'm David Peacock.
Stop owning your own content.
Young leaders are stepping up.
Bring everyone to the table
and imagine their world anew.
Free electric taxis in Bellevue, Washington. That may not surprise you given Bellevue's proximity to the headquarters of Microsoft and Seattle's high-tech industry. What might surprise you is the idea started with a destination organization and then grew from there. In the Great Lakes Bay region, a unique collaboration between tourism and transportation is taking shape, with a vision to enhance regional connectivity and economic growth. Two reaching projects that break the mold, foster new engagement, and two projects that beg the questions. What is the role and function of a DMO in the modern world? How do you shape demand among your board and constituency for your innovative projects? My guests today are Brad Jones, Executive Director of Visit Bellevue, Washington, and Dr. Annie Rummel, CEO, Great Lakes Regional CVB, Michigan. Good morning, Brad. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Good morning. Right here in Bellevue, Washington. There's nothing better than summers in the Pacific Northwest. So we're enjoying the summer, and business is good, and we're busy here. So it's delightful. Thank you.
Great to see you. Good morning, Annie. Always good to see you. How are you? Where are you? What's it like?
Well, thank you for having me, David. I'm here in the heart of pure Michigan, severe clear skies, low humidity, and much like Bellevue, just idyllic situation.
It's a great day to be in North America, eh? For sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about these initiatives. They're outside, the coloring book lines here. Free electric taxis in Bellevue. This is something you've been working on for a while. I know that COVID accelerated, but give us just a top line, couple minute description on how you come to this.
Yeah, we just celebrated the first birthday of Bellhop, which is the name for our electric shuttle service. And we're still ecstatic about this idea and program. As you know, Bellevue is kind of a lifestyle center of the Seattle region. So when we started thinking about the challenge of microtransit, we knew that we had to do something cool, but we had certain goals to accomplish with this. And we actually started pre-COVID with noodling about ideas to really solve the micro-mobility challenge in our city. A lot of cities, a lot of destinations have. And so we really challenged ourselves, and we came up with a great concept. It's all electric, it's free, it's on demand, it's point to point, it's app-based. It operates 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. We do them through fun GEM vehicles. There's 6 passengers, so 5 passengers and a driver. Everybody has a door and a window. We serve a 6 square mile area encompassing all of our downtown, and that includes about 75% of our hotel rooms. And so what we really wanted to do is dive into this shared community value of microtransit and serve the major constituents in our realm, visitors, residents that live in the district, and also our workforce. So many people don't know Bellevue has over 100,000 workers that come here every day to work in that district. And hotel shuttles were gone after the pandemic and never came back. And Bellevue's in the middle of a really great transportation system. We're opening a new light rail to our airport in downtown Seattle, and it connects a lot of our corporate centers. And so we needed really a micro transit option to put all that together and to serve the district. So Visit Bellevue funded the pilot program for the first 10 months, and we partnered with a company by the name of Circuit, who does this in some other markets around North America. And we really wanted to take 10 months to prove that concept, Since then, that 10-month window, we've welcomed new funding partners that have really come in, and they're overjoyed at helping to fund the program. So as I said, we just funded we just passed the 1-year anniversary. We've served 85,000 passengers, and those come in about one-third bucket of visitors, residents, and workforce. And some of those are shared rides, so over 45,000 rides. I'm very happy. Passenger satisfaction is a 4.9 out of 5. And we've saved 40,000 gallons of gas, which is wonderful. So,
wow.
That's the program, and we continue to build on it. But it really took the DMO, Visit Bellevue, to dive in and fund this and do it and prove concept.
Wow. So more than 80,000 rides in 11 months. That's $1 million worth of rides. We're going to come back to how you built, because I can't imagine how you get the runway to do things like this. And we'll talk about that. But first, I want to go to Annie and say, Annie, tell us about the Great Lakes Bay Airport Endowment Fund. What's going on? Where's it start? Where's it going?
Well, the first brick on the yellow brick road was placed by Adam Sachs. He did a study on destination development back in 2014, and how identifying the airport as central to the transportation hub, and ensuring that flights in and out of there didn't have more than one layover stop was key to destination growth. So I loved that study. I still reference it, obviously. And so what we started to do, and in 2014, I started setting aside small increments of funding to build up to, and including my board of directors, explaining to them why this was so important, but knowing that we couldn't take $750,000 out of our budget in a single year. So we needed a strategy to help our airport be able to attract new flights in and out of the airport, and return our flights to our primary hubs at Delta. That's Atlanta and Minneapolis. We lost those post-COVID. During COVID, those connecting flights went away, and now it requires 2 layovers to get to our destination, and we're not going to grow with that scenario. And so putting in an endowment fund in place that's not associated with federal dollars that can't be spent for marketing and advertising to airlines, and then putting in a guaranteed reimbursement for empty seats was the goal of these funds. Again, this is a long-term strategy. It's not going to happen overnight. We'll finally start seeing some of the return on our initial investment probably within 2 years from now. But the airport is setting up their team to meet with the airlines and to learn from other airports who already have these endowment funds, finding out best practices, and then we'll deploy it and try to reconnect with those assets that have been lost, and then also build on new flights coming in and out and new airlines being attracted.
Can I ask you, what's the goal of the fund? Is there a magic number, or is it continually building?
Right now, the goal was to get it established and to understand the cost associated with what the airlines expected. We also have the goal of just getting those primary hubs returned. And I don't know that necessarily our funding will be needed to do that, but our funding demonstrates the desire by the community to have this happen. And with airlines like Delta and United, having community support is equally as important, and commitment to those airlines at that airport is equally as important to them as funding the seats. So we also are in partnership with Dow Chemical Corporation. It used to be called, now it's just Dow. And we're working with them to stress to Delta and United the importance of returning our one-stop hub back to our airport.
So you talked about other airports using this idea of an endowment fund. So if you're looking at a 2-hop airport that's trying to build an endowment fund, what are we looking at? $500,000 in the kitty to start? Like, how does it work?
I did a challenge out to say that our office had $750,000 in reserve for the airport, which we've saved up since 2014. So this was an overnight success that took 10 years to be able to save that amount of money. But putting that into that fund year after year showed the commitment of my board of directors towards this. And then I challenged the airport to raise an additional $2 million to be endowed. And so their job now is to go out to the community, to go out to other industries in addition to tourism, and knock on the doors and get that $2 million. And then it'll start accruing the interest.
Well, I love that slippery rolling function that just seems to work, but I know the work that went in behind that. So we'll get to that. But coming back to funding for a second, Brad, that program's worth $1 million a year. You don't underwrite the whole thing anymore. You found some great partners to work on that with you. Who are they? How's that work?
Yeah, it's been great. During the pilot program, we developed a table of supporters. So we had many, 20 plus people that would come monthly and talk to us about the service. And from that table, it was always envisioned that we would develop future funders, and they have. So currently, it's kind of interesting. The city of Bellevue has come in to help fund it, as well as Amazon. They're our major funder. Amazon will have 25,000 employees in Bellevue very soon. So they see direct benefit, but they're really also into it for the shared community value as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Let me ask you this. How do you get to the point where you're allowed to make speculative ventures in 6+ figures? I'm asking you both this with your boards. I mean, there's the starting point. First of all, we live in, very traditional board model. So you've both reached outside that. And, even after you convince your boards, you have to engage stakeholders. But Brad, how did you build the willingness to experiment inside the organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually a deep question. I think, first of all, you have to have trust and good conversation. And but ours really stems from the willingness to be bold. David, that's in our destination brand. Is we want to be bold and innovative, and so really from day one, that's been our narrative at Visit Bellevue. So. But it's one thing to say that, and it's another thing to do it. So I think demonstrating to your leadership and board that you're going to help solve a community problem is huge, and get them out of the realm of only doing marketing and only doing sales. We're in the visitor business, and we need to always be advancing and improving the visitor experience. So if you can do all that and have trust in doing that, I think you'll get there. But it does take a little time and a lot of conversation. But that's what I've found to be successful.
When the idea of supplementing transportation first comes up, and as you said when you opened, it was pre-COVID. Was there a debate about that, or was it, hey, that's a good idea? Like, how does that work?
Well, the Achilles heel of transportation are studies. I'm telling you, when I started looking at this area, planners and counties and cities and transit authorities have mountains of studies, and they always go back to them, and they always want to do a new one. And so after I kind of dove into all that, we weren't interested in really studying. We were interested in finding a something that worked. And so from that perspective, I would say try to look through the studies and the red tape and all that, and bring all of those people I mentioned wanted something to happen in the market, but I feel like they were paralyzed by studies and reports. And so we were bold enough to just go, and I think our community needed that. And we see now the evolution past and bringing something to market.
So anybody's eyebrows go up though when the tourism organization was the lead on transportation?
Oh yeah, yeah. And interestingly, we didn't have to do a lot of permitting because it's a free service, right? The minute you start charging for the service and you start competing with transit companies and things like that. So we learned that and we wanted it to be free for everybody in the service district. So, but there were a lot of people going, those people are crazy. They don't know what they're doing. They're not in transportation. But what we are in is the experience business, right? And we listen and so we led with that and we let everything else kind of figure itself out with a really good service provider.
You talked about it being roughly the uptake being roughly a third with workers, visitors, and residents. I mean, that's going to be attractive to the partners. Did you know that coming out of the gate? Did you anticipate that?
We didn't, and that's why it was so important for us to step forward and do a 10-month kind of pilot proof of concept so we could get all that data and share it and talk about it. If we had many different funding partners in that pilot program, we would have had to been serving their constituency throughout it. So we didn't have that pressure. We just wanted to bring this to market and see what happened and really study the data and usership and then make a model around that, if that makes sense.
Super. I've made a note around using data to move and inspire people, which is where I want to go with you, Annie, because I know very much dealing with, at the time, 3 chambers and 3 ECDEV offices, or am I short on that?
Nope, that's exactly right. And then all those EDAs that are in the region as well.
All right, you talk when we talk all the time about using data to change people's minds, to shape their thinking. You started off with the Adam Sachs piece, how that single piece cut through the clutter for you and said, you know what, this is obvious. Tell me about bringing people on board and that process, especially the complexity of literally 3 chambers, 3 ECDEV offices.
Well, much like Bellevue, we looked at all the studies that they had done and all of their efforts and just said, we're going to just make this happen. We made the decision, although it didn't quite initiate as quickly as in Bellevue. Like I said, we had to save up to initiate this program, but we gained the trust of the chambers and the economic developments far before this. We met with them. We showed them that we're not going into EDO's traffic lane. We identified the segment of economic development that applied specifically to tourism, but yet spilled over and benefited every other aspect of industry, manufacturing, and business. So the chambers were happy. I demonstrated that our work is from the county lines out, and that the chamber's work is primarily from the county line in. So we weren't going to duplicate efforts. We also shared everything. So whatever we were doing, we kept good communication lines open. We said, here's what we're doing. And what we found out is once you've established that trust, like was discussed before, and you identify something that their data shows a need for, you just dive in and say, hey, we can make this happen. Now, before the airport effort, we had accomplished about 6 major economic development, sense of place development projects already. We expanded, we bought a former hotel, 7-story hotel, and a city block size building that no investor would have been able to afford to purchase and remediate because of all the asbestos. And so we tore all those down, and then we turned that over to the municipality and said, we'd like you to develop it into something tourism related. Now we have a beautiful outdoor park and resolved a lot of safety. We found out from the police that any crime that was happening within that part of the town was gone because the bar was gone and the vacant hotel was gone. And then from there, we went out and expanded soccer fields from 16 to 21 and did 2 major national tournaments that had direct spend of between 12 and $15 million each time. That opened some eyes. And then right now we're currently working on remediation of the Saginaw River shoreline, which right now has not had any development because of the contamination. So we're learning about brownfield redevelopment zones, but we're working to deepen our river to accommodate not only cruise ships, but also commercial ships. So we earn trust by performance. And now with the airport, it was an easy buy-in. So you don't have to do major projects, just do little things that solve problems that radiate beyond tourism. And that's how you gain that trust.
Well, a couple things I want to comment on there. One, you use a term all the time, and you specifically call it tourism economic development projects. You define your lane. You're very careful when you say that to people. But you talk about in the airport case, very easy to create an analogy with the Airport Endowment Fund. It's very marketing related because it generally is about stimulating inbound through incentive or filled seats. But those other projects, you got my attention. You bought a building. You remediated soccer fields. You're working on the Saginaw River. Come on, tell me that is outside the traditional realm of marketing, isn't it?
But
it isn't. It isn't. As a classical marketer, is goods and services for people that don't come back, for people who do. But when you look at it in the context of the traditional DMO budget, it's really reaching. So, is it all marketing still under the marketing budget?
Well, our setup when we regionalized, I made sure that I kept each of the county organizations and they kept all their toys. And I carved out 25% of the money for overhead and operation expenses at each of those offices, those visitor centers. We used probably maybe 8% of that 25% for that overhead expense because we own all of those offices now. So the balance I can put away in for economic development projects. And so like just recently, we were able to award $600,000 to the tennis center to convert some of their tennis courts over to pickleball courts. And we'll have the nation's largest indoor pickleball facility by the end of next year.
You never cease to amaze me. The emergent systems to actually do development and to market in a non-traditional sense. I mean, we met. It's probably more than a decade ago, and you were starting into social media. It was in New Orleans, but no, I'm really excited about this. The message is there are ways to be involved in these projects. They are, in the sense, marketing a sense of place, et cetera, et cetera. I'm excited. I mean, if I hadn't bumped into you in Tampa, Brad, you wouldn't have mentioned the cars. And if you hadn't mentioned the cars, I wouldn't have gone looking for Annie again. And this is a kind of exciting stuff. How do you maintain it now? I always say, and it's back to what I call the Leonard Hoops question. If you get 600 plus people in a room in Indy to do Destination Next, what do you do with those people after that? So, Brad, how do you maintain the inertia?
Yeah, so I think keeping our eye on the ball, number one, and making sure that we're serving the community well is first and foremost. I think we're thinking a lot about destination stewardship right now, and this really is our centerpiece to build from. So we're going to look at how we expand from the current 6 square mile area and serve 2 other districts in the city as well. So we're going to be doing that next year with our partners. And we just also launched a new program that is kind of fun and micro mobility with bikes. So we call that Bike Hop. This is Bellhop. That's Bike Hop. And so we're putting electric bikes in our hotels, and visitors who stay there can utilize those for free. And we're learning a lot from that program in building out our bike infrastructure and trail infrastructure. But it's giving us the impetus to get people out on those, and people that have a handful of hours. So it's just an example of building from something, like Annie said, that that you have success with, and then build on that. So, but first and foremost, making sure that we're serving the community well is what we need to do.
That's really interesting because I know you got to Bellevue before COVID. How many years before COVID?
3 years before COVID. Yeah.
Okay, and you've always been working to innovation, but it sounds to me what I'm hearing here is this one in particular has caught the minds and imaginations of people. And you talk about building from this too. It's part of towards your sustainability strategy. So this is a what do they call them, a black swan sort of thing for you incident.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what really happened is if I were to go out and survey the resident population and the workforce population, they had no idea who Visit Bellevue was prior to Bellhop. Mm-hmm. Now that we put this in the community, they've attached us to this, and it's serving them, so they love us.
Wow!
And so I'll tell you what, we've received numerous convention bids. Mm-hmm. We've received people who have called us with ideas for new events, only because they connected Visit Bellevue to Bellhop, and they had a really good experience, and we were cool and innovative. So now they're bought in, right? And so it's really activated all of our different departments and initiatives. Previously, they had no care in the world who Visit Bellevue was.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. It's fair to say it kind of blew your mind in spots too, then.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting. Annie, same thing. I mean, you've done this for a while. You built consensus. Was this project really catalytic in sort of moving you into the next phase of who you are as a destination management organization?
Well, again, I think the results of the transportation initiative are just at their very beginning. So it's going to take about 5 years to really coordinate all of the public transportation, buses, Uber drivers, Lyft drivers. So in addition to the marketing dollars that we set aside for the airport, we're also working with them to create a transportation hub on the airport site with its own building so that all of these various companies know exactly where to go, how to transport, and they're complementing one another. They're not competing against each other. So even with timing on the convention groups coming in. But Brad, you are so cool and you are so innovative and you're spot on with what the residents and having them engaged and understanding what their desires are. So again, I take it back to data. If you haven't done a resident survey, find out what their priorities are, because once you find those out, you compare them with the EDOs and the chambers, then you'll find out that we're all kind of one unit, just coming at challenges from different directions, but solving those and making the sense of place in the community better for the residents is going to also attract talent. So it all works together if you open your eyes to the possibilities that are out there.
So I totally respect the idea of inbound taking years and years to develop roots and stuff. And you've always had a tremendous amount of respect in your community, and you earned it, Annie. But is this one different? Is this one actually raised that profile even more? Because it seems just so significant to me.
I think this one, in tandem with, we just hosted the Memorial Cup. And David, I think you're pretty familiar with that. Brad, I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's the
it's Canadian hockey holy grail.
Yes, it's the holy grail of Canada. And we have an Ontario Hockey League team within our community. So it's the first time it's been out of Canada in like 40, 50 years. And it's the very first time it was ever hosted east of the Rocky Mountains and and we did win it, you know? So
Way to go.
we had to set up all of these inbound flights with the teams coming in, the coaches, the families. And I think the people really became aware of the need of having an active airport within our community. But not only that, there's a desire for outbound travel. Right now, our people are having to drive an hour and a half through traffic just to get to the airport to make their vacation travel outbound. And that's not even considering the cargo carrying capacity of these airlines. So when you're doing a project like this, I can't just focus on those inbound passengers. Although that's my primary metric, my primary KPI, I also have to understand the entire global picture of what this project has the capacity to do and communicate that out to the community to say, you know what, if these planes are coming in, they're going to be flying out and you're going to have more connected opportunities. And then that's where you get the business component with the cargo shipping, and their people are coming in and out as well. So that's how you you get the buy-in for the entire project throughout the community, is looking at it through everyone's lens and saying, how will this benefit the residents? How will this benefit the community? In addition to not only building tourism.
All right, I'm going to give you a chance both to wrap it up, but just on as you wrap it up, comms is tremendously important of this. You've released the Kraken, and now you have to constantly stay on it and manage it and ride it. But just parting thoughts to your peers around the world as they head into initiatives like this. I'm going to leave it open to you. What do you want to say to them? Who wants to go first?
I would just say be bold, and don't be afraid to try things that might fail, because we all have. And I think the swing and a miss, you learn a lot from that and can piece together something that does work. The other thing is be known in your community for that risk taker and somebody that's going to advance ideas, and not just sit around and talk about it, but really bring an industry with you of doers. And that's what we need to be known as in our communities, is an industry of doers.
Thanks. Annie?
We don't maintain any of the projects that I picked as economic stimulators. We make sure that we identify government entities and government infrastructure that we can focus on, contribute to, write grants for, prioritize in our day-to-day work. And then we leave it in the hands of those individuals responsible for that particular activity. And I'll go back to the soccer fields. I don't mow the lawns. I don't maintain. That's a municipal park. And so, but by our contribution to that municipal park, we have it now as an asset forever and ever. So I guess I'm a little bit selfish in that regard. I want to be free and go on to the next project and let it go and let it grow. So that's what I would say. And then as a destination organization, you define who you are. If you want to stay purely marketing, that no one out there, your board, if that's what they want, that's what you should stay. But by taking the risk, the measured risk, you can make a difference throughout your community, and you can become closer with the other organizations in your community. Residents will step up and bring you business. I would also caution any DMO that wants to stay strictly marketing, because AI is going to eat you alive. So if we don't redefine ourselves as organizations, you'll be gone. That's my belief. And people can challenge me on that, but I truly believe that this is the new horizon for destination marketing organizations, is that balance between service, marketing, attraction, but yet contributing back to the community, talent attraction, working cooperatively, collaboratively, and making changes.
It is, without a doubt, a great pleasure to watch both of you operate. I appreciate the innovation. I appreciate the experimentation of role and function. I think it makes us all richer for that. And you heard it here first. Dr. Annie Rummel said, Brad Jones, you are so cool.
Totally.
That's my biggest takeaway. Thank you.
Have a great day, guys. Thanks for doing this.